Tigers are still in fourth spot, and we're back for another episode as we just keep riding this wave of wins and emotion all the way through to the final series. We're officially locked into the top 8 now, which is the good news. We can't drop out mathematically. Now it's just a matter of where do we finish within that top 8. But if we keep winning, fourth spot is ours. And to talk about all that tonight plus more, we've got a first-time guest, Brahj. Welcome to the show, mate.
Thanks, man. Thanks for having me.
No dramas.
Yeah, I'm just excited to be here.
I should have clarified it before we actually went to air. Is it pronounced Brahj? I just said it said as I read it.
Yeah, no, that works.
Okay, because I've had the same issue with Tiasta, whatever we want to call him. So there's a few unique usernames. As we usually ask most guests, how did you become a Tiger supporter?
I think, like most Richmond supporters, I was kind of forced into it by my dad. So, yeah, a lot of the late 80s, early 90s was a fair bit of pain, which continued into the early 2000s. And, yeah, it sort of wasn't until 2017 that it was like, thanks, Dad.
The funny thing is, though, I think the parents felt that sense of relief as well, because, shit, we've signed him up to this, and it's not going too well. But to get the flag,
Yeah, I mean, definitely tongue-in-cheek. I guess it's, there's definitely been times when it's been pretty shithouse, but I think for the most part it's pretty good, Could definitely be worse teams.
Well, the last few years have paid off really well, so hopefully there's a bit more success to come. The grand final, 2017, were you there?
I wasn't. I was actually at Punt Road with my brother, but it was great. It was a good sort of day, I suppose. I think we hung around for the Norm Smith presentation, like on the big screen, and I think the first probably backyard that we walked down just near Swan Street was a house party, so I was probably there for the next 5 hours.
Hey, did you know the people whose house it was?
No. At first they were charging us for beers, and then I think they thought we were with other people who were friends and we were just drinking for free. So
wow.
Do as you do, I suppose.
That's not surprising that something like that happened.
You just feel the love, like it was the summer of '69 all over again.
So was it just flooded with Richmond people, or was it like an actual someone's party?
Yeah, totally. Like I think it was a few sort of neutral supporters, but it was like the first time that a neutral supporter can be, I'm just happy for Richmond. I'm happy they've done this.
Yeah.
I don't think they'd say it any other time, really.
No, that's a fair call. The atmosphere at Punt Road, what was that like? I mean, it would have been jam-packed, and I imagine it would have been just electric, given that there was just all Richmond people there.
Oh, it was great. I mean, it kind of gave you perspective of what it would be like watching. Actually, it's insane that, because I went to the game the week before against the Giants, and that was next level. Like in terms of atmosphere, and it was probably like that, just a bit different in terms of you're standing on Punt Road Oval watching a massive TV. But yeah, I think it was just really overwhelming. Like when Butler kicked that goal, I think it was a bit of a tear and whatnot. But just a great day.
Hopefully
I'm breaking up.
Hopefully we can do it all again at some stage, because what a party that would have been.
Yeah, shit, yeah. I've put away money already, actually.
That's the tricky part, isn't it? Is actually trying to find the coin to do it. It's not cheap. Like my wife's a Hawthorn supporter, and when they went through their successful patch, she would stupidly complain to me, be like, "Oh, it's so expensive to keep going to finals year after year." I'm like, are you serious? You're really going to try and play that card on me? The wrong supporter to complain to about that, but hopefully we're getting a few back now. Huge game on the weekend against Melbourne. Did you get along to that one, or did you watch it on TV?
No, I ended up watching on TV. Just pretty gutsy, hard fought. To Melbourne's credit, they probably stuck it to us a little bit early, but I think it was probably just the good old Richmond grind, as far as just really wear them down, and then it's sort of that halfway through the third quarter and just blitz them from there. But
it was an interesting game. You're right. Early on, they were really good. I think a lot of us expected that. I mean, I know they're second last, but they've been in a lot of the games they've been playing, so it always felt like they weren't far off, and they've got a good enough midfield.
Yeah, I mean, just showing how prepared I am. They're pretty far down the ladder too. I mean, it's probably not reflective of how good of a team they really are. I mean, it's a bit of an anonymous. I'm just going to skip that word, but it's a bit weird that
I'm not going to try and correct you either because I don't reckon I can say it too. So.
It's a bit weird that you can have a team finish top 4 and then not even sort of scrape into near the 8.
Yeah, it is. Yep.
Weird. Oh well.
What did you make of Dylan Grimes getting tagged by Jordan Lewis? I thought it was a really smart move by Melbourne, and to Grimes' credit, I think he coped okay. Lewis obviously got a few goals, but I reckon this could be a tactic we might see a bit more going forward now.
Yeah, and I mean, it's probably worked out so well because Jordan Lewis is such a smart footballer. Had it just been a tag, I don't think it would have been as effective. But yeah, I guess he's sort of just knows where to get into the right positions and just make you hurt on the rebound a little bit, as far as just creating that space, leading to dangerous places. Yeah.
And what about I felt that I don't know whether we were unaccountable in the first half. I'm not sure if we should point the blame to the defenders. Maybe it was more we weren't applying enough pressure to their midfield, but it just felt like the D's had a lot of space in their forward line in the first half, and they were able to capitalise. Is that just a product of Gon being a good ruckman?
Yeah, a little bit. I mean, that's the thing. I mean, when you've got a ruckman in sort of this day and age who's in the conversation for Brownlows, it probably needs to be respected as far as his output in the actual game. Probably an accountability for the defenders. But I mean, Vlastuin was smashing it.
His first quarter was unbelievable.
Yeah, that was really great to see. I think just as far as almost that depth covering from Rance. It's kind of like the Moneyball thing of you don't really have to replace one player with another great player. It's just upping the output of everyone else to sort of cover it. Yeah.
No, he was really good. One of my mates said he was going to put Vlastuin into his super coach this week. I'm like, oh, yeah, he goes all right. I said, are you watching this game at quarter time? You'd be just absolutely laughing. Yeah, he was on fire. The marks he was taking. It's just his courage and his ability to read the play. And I think all of our defenders have those attributes which makes them so hard to score against.
Yeah, definitely. And, I mean, it's probably what has made this year... I mean, there was a little bit of doom and gloom at the start, but it's real honest-to-goodness sort of positivity and, flag chances kind of thing.
Yeah,
without a best player.
Crazy. Yeah, it's ridiculous how it's turned around. You mentioned, obviously, the first half, the Ds were looking all right. The second half, we obviously kicked off. I find it fascinating that when it started belting down rain is when we sort of rose and played our best football. I reckon we're obviously a Richmond show, so we can be biased if we want to, but we'd have to be close to being the best wet weather football side in the comp.
Yeah, and it's funny sort of supporting a successful team now after not having, followed a team that could just drop it at any moment. There's something about when the rain comes down, there's just the confidence grows within you as a Richmond supporter.
It's because it usually should do the opposite. Like, usually you think, oh, shit, our skill level's going to go to crap. The other team's going to get back in the game. And that, for all intents and purposes, is what happens. But for some reason, our guys seem to go to another level. And it's the tall dudes as well. Like, you look at the goal that Soldo got. Lynch is pretty clean for a big guy when it's wet. It's just ridiculous what they can do.
Big time. And I mean, probably to Lynch's credit, because that was a little bit of a knock against him as far as what can he do below his knees. And yeah, I mean, he's fit into the system well where that kind of attribute is really needed as far as just maintaining the chaos ball to your favour. Yeah.
No, he does a sensational job. Basher Houli's game, I mean, given the conditions, to get 32 touches at 81% efficiency, I've said it before, but I reckon he's having almost his best season.
Yeah, all year he's been killing it. And, I mean, probably truth be told, he's been killing it earlier. It's just that, the likes of Dusty, Koch, Rance, Jack take a little bit of the limelight. And I think he's really sort of stepped up as that positive offensive player from halfback that is just ruthless, though. Like, with the ball in hand, it's very rare that it's coming back the other way, which is great because, I mean, watching Brandon Ellis do Brandon Ellis things sometimes.
Yeah.
It's sort of nice to see, the beard with the ball in hand.
And it's also how hard he works. Like I like it when they do the camera shot from behind the goal from a kick out. Like you just see that short pass and the work rate he puts in to get to the next position to receive the ball again to set up the attack. It's no wonder he ends up with 30 disposals.
Yeah, definitely. It's funny too. I also thought just from that back six group, Asprey just seems to be growing in confidence with ball in hand, or maybe it's just my own confidence watching him as far as, he's going to do something sort of half decent. And it's not going to be just sort of garbage, sideways handball or whatever. He will actually go out of his way to draw a defender and move it on.
The good thing with him, though, is he plays within his limitations. Like, he isn't the guy who'll try and take on that 45-degree kick. He'll do that switch kick, get it to the guy in space for them to do the damaging pass. So when they're playing smart like that, you don't mind how much of the ball they get. But you're right, Asprey's sort of taking upwards of 5, 6, 7 marks on a weekly basis now in the back half, and just sort of being a real general and setting it all up.
Yeah, big time. I mean, there's not much we can really knock in the defence, I think. I mean, Baker's role is probably up for grabs, sorry. As far as whether or not he fits into that defensive back assist as a half back. But other than that, I mean, they're just flawless, really.
Yeah, and like you said earlier, to be able to cover Rance, like no one in their right mind could ever replace Rance with another Rance. It just doesn't happen. Doesn't matter what team you are, but for everyone just to work it out and fill that void has been really good. So on the flip side of that, though, say hypothetically if Rance somehow makes his miraculous comeback, do you think that could then upset what the guys have now managed to forge in the way of a new relationship down back?
Yeah, and I mean, that would probably be where a lot of apprehension sort of comes around as far as whether you play Rance or not, obviously outside of the re-injury risk and whatnot. But, I mean, the fact is that they've been playing with Rance together for like 3 or 4 years, and it's just that we're seeing this chemistry without Rance. So, I mean, whether it happens in round 23, week 1 of the finals, or round 1 next year, it's something that they'll have to adjust to, I suppose. And I don't think it'll be such a huge adjustment as getting a whole entirely new All-Australian defender in. Yeah. It'll just be sort of a little bit of shifting, I suppose, as far as who does what.
And there's been a bit of speculation on social media. I think it was Tony Sheen put out a tweet that the rumour he's hearing is that Rance was contemplating retiring at the end of the year. I think a BigFooty post on the Hawthorn board, who has typically had good mail in the past, had heard the same thing. I think there's something in it. I know a lot of people say, why would you do all this rehab if you're going to just retire? But I get that point, but it actually also works the other way, because maybe he has realised, okay, maybe they don't need me as much as I think they did. Maybe he's got more hesitation, wants to travel, do what he wants to do, and this could be his one last chance. But it's risky, and look, we'll ultimately find out at the end of the year, I suppose. And I hope he plays on. But it's definitely an interesting thing that Tony threw out there.
Yeah, and I think it's probably carries more weight just with what has happened with Rance in the past, as far as he's almost retired before. So, I mean, it's... Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if that is what happened. And I guess all this rehab is just to try and get back for one last tilt at a flag before he hangs up the boots. But, I mean, it'd be a shame to lose him. It
would be. But I think, he's going to retire at some stage, whether it's now, in 2 years, whatever it might be. At least as supporters and as a club, we've seen that we can cope with life without Rance. I think that was a really important thing for us to be able to see and understand.
Yeah, big time. Yeah, I guess it definitely has helped. And I mean, geez, we've seen the team in sort of many different forms this year. I mean, that game earlier against Port Adelaide, where it was pretty much just Tom Lynch putting Richmond on his back. It does fill you with confidence, as far as even if a player's having an off day, they can probably be covered by someone else's output on the ground.
Yeah, definitely. The number 4, Dusty Martin, he's starting to hit some form again.
Oh, killing it. What I really want to know what boots he's wearing now, because
that is the big question.
Yeah, he is smashing it. And I mean, was it all shoe related earlier?
I don't know. Maybe it just really affected him that he just wasn't happy, and yeah, he's dropped off accordingly. It's quite strange, but I think a lot of people would argue he's back into his 2017 form.
Yeah, definitely. And yeah, he just looks dangerous again with ball in hand, that old, wheel out and just move it on as fast as possible. God, the kicking, it's a work of art, really. Some of the kicks that he can pull off. And
he looks confident again. I know that sounds strange given the type of person he is, but earlier on it just seemed he was a bit more in his shell, wasn't prepared to take those risks, but now he's like, come at me.
I mean, dare I say it, he looked like a normal player. And that's probably, I guess, where so many people were hung up, as far as you couldn't really get the boot stuck into him, because it's not like he was playing shit.
Yeah.
It's just that he wasn't at the Dusty level that we're probably used to.
Yeah, he's a victim of his own good form sometimes, unfortunately. But luckily for us, he's hitting that form again. Number 3, Dion Prestia. What a year he's having. 31 disposals at 77%, 11 contested possessions, 6 marks. And he's one of our cleanest players when it's a wet condition day. He's really cleaned up his kicking, I reckon. I know some of his shots at goal can be a bit wayward, but he's starting to become more damaging and more influential on games now.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, and I mean, whether that's sort of just, I guess, his own sort of developmental thing, or he's just kind of worked his way into our system and it's just taken a little bit longer than usual, I'm not too sure. But I mean, the meatball, he's unreal, mate. He's really good. Probably, I was even having this chat with Dad probably 2 weeks ago. He's nearly up there as our most important midfielder outside of Martin.
Agree. And I mean, you would remember when we made the trade, all the sort of speculation and criticism around giving away pick 6, but I think he was a big part in helping deliver the flag, number 1, and then number 2, to see what he's done this year. I think we can sort of now say it was fairly justified.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, I mean, I'd definitely do it again, knowing what I know now.
Yeah.
But yeah, I guess it's whether it was also sort of a contributing factor to getting Lynch and Caddy and all the rest of it, who knows? But I guess
think so. I think it'd be naive to think that it didn't play a part.
Yeah, that's true. I guess it's probably more just on the output as like a footballer. Unreal, totally. And I think everything else off field, as far as get the mates into the club, like who can fucking kill it at football. That's just extra points in my book.
No, he's had a pretty good job. I reckon he's almost a shoe-in for the Jack Dyer medal at this stage.
Yeah, right. Jeez. Yeah.
But there's been a lot of other players who've had a good year as well. But the other thing, I mean, he's played every game, so he's one of like 2 or 3 players for us this year who have done that. So he's obviously got that in his favour.
I mean, long gone is the Prestia laid out joke.
It still lives on the board. Sometimes I feel like it's in hope, which I don't like. But yeah.
Yeah. But I guess he's probably his form has probably stuck it to that a little bit.
Yeah.
As far as we would genuinely miss him now if it was laid out.
Oh, absolutely. And the last one I want to talk about quickly is Shane Edwards. We'll probably mention him a little bit again later on, but he was out of form maybe a couple of weeks ago, but I thought his game on the weekend was brilliant. 31 disposals, 11 contested possessions, but he was back to his slick handballing self, and just the way he opens up the game for us is so dangerous.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's funny, like, probably a few years ago, I wasn't such a hardcore rusted on fan in terms of, like, I'd watch Richmond games and just leave it at that. And was probably one of those people who was guilty of not really understanding the importance of Shane Edwards, just because his screen time in a game, if you will, is so limited as far as he'll just be correcting the ball and passing it on, but putting it on a literal silver platter for the next bloke. And I think now that that's understood and he's sort of getting the accolades he really deserves now, it's great to see, to be honest.
I think a lot of that was more that his teammates weren't able to get on the same page as him. They didn't understand how he could see the game so quickly, and he was thinking too far ahead from everyone else. But now they've all caught up. everyone,
Yeah.
or from a Richmond perspective, they know where he's going to put the ball on and what kind of space they can get into, and he'll give it to them. And yeah, he's unbelievable to watch.
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, it's probably this fast ball movement and attack at all cost kind of thing is really conducive to the Shane Edwards type of game. Yeah.
No, it fits him well. All right, before we move on to the game for this week, want to do the 3 things you learnt from round 20. It doesn't have to be Richmond related, but did you have 3 things there that you'd learned over the weekend?
Oh, Jesus. God damn.
I'll throw one out first.
Yeah, go on.
The one I had, no one has scored over 70 points against us since we come back from the bye, and I reckon that's a great sign. And I know we haven't played world-beating teams, but to still have the ability to keep teams under 70 points in this day and age, I think is a really good thing to have heading towards finals.
Yeah, definitely. I think, okay, this is one, it's a bit negative, and I'm certainly not proud of this. I think at the end of last year, I probably threw a little bit of a post out about the fact that we should look to move on Dan Butler. And I think that's probably come about face now, as in that is probably the reality. Which is sad, really, because, he's part of that premiership group, but I just don't think he has a spot in the forward line anymore. Yeah, I
think you're right. I mean, even on the weekend, I don't know, I've just always felt like he looks complacent in games. Like, there's not a lot of urgency. I think he got 3 or 4 tackles, which was good, but offensively, I just feel like he hasn't offered anything near what the other guys have.
Yeah, and I mean, but it's sad because he did offer that once upon a time ago. Yeah. It's not like this has always been Dan Butler's game. It just feels like it's just the worst form slump in history that he can't really shake. And I mean, maybe another team is really what he needs. And, if that's what's going to benefit both parties, then it should definitely be explored, I think.
Yeah, I think that's a good call.
Mm.
The second one I've got here is that Geelong are in real danger of missing the top 4 if they lose to North this week. They started out, 11-1 or 11-2, whatever it might have been, but they've looked a bit shaky, and if they drop this week, Brisbane up in Brisbane's not an easy game by any stretch of the imagination, so they're a good chance to drop that. And then I think they've got Carlton in the last round, and they're not going to be easy beats with their sort of newfound form, so I think the Cats really could be in a bit of trouble here.
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, to be honest, I kind of take a bit of joy in that because I'm not real crazy about Geelong. Living in Geelong too, so I'm living it at the moment.
We should get you and Crocodile on for an episode one time. That'd be good for a laugh. You both live down in Geelong. That'd be good.
Yeah, sweet. We can both get the cryo banter on.
Yeah.
Something that I've learnt from here. Geez, man, I really should have had a look at these beforehand. I guess this probably lends itself to the game that we're playing this week, but I don't think Carlton are the same old write-offs that they've always been. I mean, probably the last 4-5 years, basically, when they've just been under Bolton. Geez, it just goes to show what a change of culture and with a new coach really brings to a list that you thought was probably pretty bog average, to be honest, outside of Cripps.
Yeah, they've done a really good job the way they've turned it around, and I suppose from the outside looking in, you think, okay, when does the honeymoon period finish? But they've kept going on, and they've played some lower ranked teams as well, but they've still beaten them, and they were typically games they would lose. So the turnaround's been good, and I mean, I think Carlton need to look at Teague as the full-time coach, but from all reports, it sounds like they're not going to.
Yeah, totally. It's going to be interesting. I'm was probably all hot air a couple of weeks ago, even with the new coach, but now it's sort of getting closer. There's a chance we can probably drop this, to be honest.
It's very much a real thing in play. Like, you just can't take them for granted anymore, like you said. The third thing I learnt this week is West Coast, for me, is still the team to beat. I know the Victorian media probably gets behind us a little bit more in recent times, but when you look at the Eagles and their plays that got all over the park, they just still seem like the flag favourite to me.
Yeah, totally. And I mean, it's it's probably the team that we really want to put a hurt on as far as just a regular season sort of loss. I guess we'll probably see that, in 2 weeks?
Yeah, it's actually a really good thing, I think, that we get to see it just before finals, just on the off chance we run into them at some point in the finals. So at least we get a bit of a look at it and see what we're in for.
I mean, there is a part of me that is kind of thankful that we're meeting them sort of towards the back end, but in the regular season, because ultimately if we lose, it doesn't mean as much as if we drop it in September.
True. Well, I mean, it could though, because if we drop it, we might not finish fourth, because GWS are going to mow us down pretty quickly, I imagine. So still a lot on the line, but yeah, that's going to be a fascinating game. But still got to get through this game first, I guess.
That's it.
And then the other big news this week, well, yesterday really, was Blake Carousella is going to finish up at the end of this season to take up an assistant role at Essendon, despite having a year to run on his contract with us. Now, I mean, Blake was a huge part, from what I can gather, to why we're playing the way we're playing now with that attacking brand of football. And I think he played a big part in the 2017 flag, no doubt. So I find this move a little bit strange in the sense that, one, we released him from his contract if he's just going to another assistant role. I mean, usually that's kind of reserved for if you're going to a head coach role. But the side thought to that might be he might have been told that maybe Worsfold is on the way out and it's going to be his. So you can kind of see that angle as well. But yeah,
which is odd. I think that in itself is odd, though, as far as just the timing. Because, I mean, isn't that just sending a message to Worsfold as far as...
You wouldn't feel safe, would you, if you were Worsfold? No. You'd be like, okay, so this guy's coming in, he's a highly touted new coach, and here we are. But, yeah, I mean, I really respect what Blake's done for us. He was huge for us, and I wish him all the best. But, yeah, I just find it a really interesting set of circumstances, given that I know that usually if assistants are out of contract, that has to be announced to them if they're going to have another job or not, so they have time to find a new club. But just the fact that he was still contracted that I find really interesting. But
yeah, and I think there's obviously, without knowing too much, there feels like there's just more factors to this than assistant coach who wants to go at head coach. I mean, it's probably something that he could have explored at the end of his contract next year. But in saying that, I think the opportunity to perhaps coach one of the big Victorian clubs, because, I mean, he's not going to be coaching Richmond anytime soon, let's be honest. And, I mean, Collingwood, probably not. Carlton, I doubt it. So Essendon's probably the next shot at, like, one of those bigger clubs. Good luck to him.
Yeah, absolutely. And what about a replacement in terms of us? I mean, the Damien Hardwick press conference the week that Brendan Bolton got sacked, he basically said that he could walk into a job at the club tomorrow if he wanted it. And that seems like an obvious choice based on that. But do you think we'd speak to someone like Bolton, or would you go after like a Voss or someone more experienced?
Yeah, I mean, from all, basically, like, because I had a bit of a dig around in the thread this afternoon, I really like the idea of getting Grigor on board, to be honest, provided he's sort of got the right attributes that we're looking for. And, I mean, obviously, it's probably going to be a little bit of nurturing before he's up to full flight as far as assistant coaching and whatnot. But, yeah, I'm probably more in the ballpark of getting someone young that we can, get the good coaching into. But I don't know. Is there anyone else as good as Carousella is probably the question.
It really depends on what they're trying to do. Are they trying to get someone else in to look at the ball movement part of our game, or do they think we've got that under control now that someone else can do that and they then look at replacing a different part? So it'd be interesting to see which way they go. But like for like, I'm not too sure anyone's going to have that same tactical now. So, I mean that I'm aware of anyway. But yeah, I mean, having said that though, the club's had an extraordinary run at getting the right coaches in the right spots. So we'll obviously 100% back them in. But yeah, it'd be interesting to see what path we go down.
I think, I mean, we all know that the decision is in pretty good hands as far as Neil Baum's concerned. I mean, the fact that probably Carousella has followed Barmy around to a couple of different teams is probably good. But, I mean, is that also worrying as far as he's getting let go now? Who knows?
Yeah, the bit to play out. But anyway, we obviously wish Blake all the best and thank you for his hard work. And obviously he's seeing out the rest of the season, but it's going to be interesting to see if that actually eventuates, given we could actually face Essendon in a final, which would be a little bit ironic and interesting, but it is what it is, I'm sure. I mean, they're all very professional these days, so I don't think there'll be too much we can do about it, but well done, Blake.
Yeah, totally.
All right, big game coming up this week against the Blues. You mentioned it before that, I mean, there is the very real chance they could knock us off. It's a must-win game for us, as has every other game been for the last 6 weeks, to stay in the top 4. And it's also the Alana Madeline game as well. So make sure when you're at the game, everyone to support the foundation. You can even jump on the Tigers website and buy some merchandise, and all the proceeds go back to the foundation as well. So make sure you do that. And it's also Shane Edwards' 250th game. I mean, we spoke about him before, but that's a fantastic achievement, isn't it, for him? And I mean, early days when he was younger, you kind of weren't sure if he was going to make it or not. I mean, we weren't a good side as a whole, I guess, but it was kind of hard to see how he would fit in being such a skinny little guy. But he's made a good career for himself.
Yeah, definitely. And I think, like we touched on before, as far as he's probably one of those blokes that really personifies the system that we play under now, as far as just a great attack. And I mean, some of it is just almost verging on globetrotter kind of stuff. But yeah, I mean, power to him. 250, unreal.
And even the games he played this year as captain, I thought he was sensational. There was a lot of calls just to let him keep going on with the job.
Yeah, totally. And I mean, totally justified too. And it's probably, he didn't look out of place in the back six either, I thought.
No, that was a bit of a masterstroke, and it's good to have that up our sleeve if we do need to change things up a bit. It's just a bit of a wild card.
Yeah, and I mean, he's one of probably 100. I realise that's not the list size, but there's so many versatile players on the list that I guess from a opposition strategy point of view, it must be hard in terms of, we're showing up against Richmond this week. You know, where does Stack play? Where does Titch play? Yeah,
the planning-wise, that's a good point, actually. Now, the Blues come off a 24-point loss to the Eagles. I watched most of that game, and the Blues looked really good in large parts of that game. Definitely not the same old Carlton like we spoke about earlier. They just seem to be playing a lot more freedom now, and the players are playing in better positions. They're enjoying their footy. I don't think it's going to be a pushover at all. I think with their midfield with Cripps, I know we give Walsh a bit of stick about the NAB Rising Star stuff, but he's a good player. Mark Murphy back in the middle's doing good. Curnow, they've got some good ball winners in there.
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, it's probably also the players that are surrounding them. I mean, Petrevski-Seton off half back, he's actually looking all right. Nick Newman, 4 goals, started off half back. It's pretty crazy. I mean, obviously you don't look at the list and you're not really blown away with the names, but I mean, on their day they can definitely probably get a decent score going and definitely challenge us.
The Nick Newman was interesting. Those 4 goals he got, they were Jaden Short specials, just running around the back, when someone's marked at 60 out. And I'm like, why haven't West Coast cottoned onto it? So I'm sure the boys have watched the tapes and they're going to cotton onto that one.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, even if Shorty wants to give it a crack himself again, that'd be great. It's been a while since he's dropped one of those.
Oh, yeah, it has been, hasn't it? Didn't he get like 2 or 3 in one game against Collingwood or something, and then
back to back possessions? Like, it was crazy.
But the main part of the game, I think Carlton might struggle with, is their backline on our forwards. I feel like that might be their weakest part of the ground. Cade Simpson down there's obviously the older head, but I don't know whether he's going to be able to keep up with some of the quickness of our small forwards. And Wiedering, I pray that Wiedering goes to Lynch. I think that would be just the biggest win for us. I don't rate Wiedering that highly. He's okay as a third up kind of defender, but in a one-on-one situation against someone of Lynch's size, I think that's going to be the matchup we have to try and exploit.
Yeah, I mean, it's sort of weird now, like, just having such a great forward structure for totally alien reasons than what we sort of recognised in 2017 as far as the tall versus small now. But yeah, I think our forward line is just too many headaches for Carlton. And probably, I think the Richmond grind is probably going to see Carlton, I guess, out of their legs by halfway through the third quarter again. But, who knows? I mean, it could definitely get to that point where we're losing at half time and that grind doesn't really take over at all.
And that's what you don't want. You don't want to give them confidence or a sniff because, they'll grab it with both hands. And I mean, West Coast kind of looked like they only played well in very small patches, but when they did, they were able to put a lot of goals on very quickly. And if we can apply that same kind of pressure, and I feel like we do it for longer than most teams, then we should be. I mean, we know we're going to get the inside 50s. It's just what we do kind of thing with the way we play the game. So it's just a matter of conversion, I guess. I mean, that's been our biggest issue last week. Ridiculous amount of behinds. I know it was wet, but if we can apply early scoreboard pressure, I think that's going to be key to kind of breaking them.
Yeah, totally. I mean, just get in there and smash them. Pretty easy, isn't it?
Sounds easy, yeah. Hopefully they can just go out there and do that and everyone will be happy. What about some possible changes? I'm happy
to fill in for Carousel.
Yeah, what's the game plan, guys? Just go out there and smash them, all right? Just get the job done and everyone's happy. I feel like that's what Brendan Bolton only had to say to the Carlton team, the Hawthorn team when he took over from Clarkson. He wouldn't have to have said much. Just go and play your game and get the job done, fellas.
Well, I mean, it's probably been shown, and then what?
Yeah. Now, we've got a few selection issues coming up, in a good way for once, instead of thinking, shit, who we're going to bring in next. Nankervis has obviously played another game in the VFL. He's done, 2 or 3 weeks there now. I reckon this is the game he comes in. I was really more than happy for him to not play last week. I thought Soldo matched up better on Gawn than what Nank would. So on the assumption that Nankervis comes back in, who are you dropping, Soldo or Troll?
Oh, God, it is such a hard question. And, I mean, I was racking my brain a bit about this this afternoon because Troll really offers so much around the ground and Soldo is just so rock solid in one position, and that's as a ruckman. So I guess it's really about what you're after. Because, I mean, in terms of Nat Curvis is great around the ground, so he can probably cover what Soldo's lacking. But with Chol in the side, we've got, no deficiency around the ground. So, God, how do you sort of put it from there?
I don't know. I mean, are we going to maybe try one combination this week and then the other combination the following weeks? I mean, I think they've got to have a look at both, to be honest.
Yeah, it probably is worth experimenting. I mean, if that was probably the mindset, I'd be keen to have a look at what Nankervis and Soldo in the same team looks like. Geez, it's tall though, and it's a little bit uncomfortable with, I guess, what we've sort of got used to over the last 3 years in terms of the Richmond lineup.
Because at least, I suppose the argument for Chol is he's still pretty quick. So even though he's tall and can ruck, he's just as quick as a wingman, so we don't really lose that pace there. But with the Soldo and Nank combination, we do lose a bit of that pace around the ground, but we probably gain a bit more dominance in the actual ruck area because Soldo's a better tap ruckman than all three of them, really. Yeah,
exactly. And I mean, it's probably more about the matchup on Carlton than anything else. And I mean, who have they got taken back up ruck duties these days?
They've got Phillips at the moment, but there's been a lot of talk on the Carlton board that Cruiser might be okay to come back in.
Yeah, right. I mean, if Cruiser gets up, it would probably be worth playing Soldo, but otherwise I'd just keep Joel.
Yeah, fair enough. We mentioned him before, but Dan Butler, I'm going to make an assumption he's probably going to get omitted this week. I just don't think he offered enough for the team. Who would you bring in? I mean, McIntosh has played, not necessarily as a forward, but I thought we could maybe bring in McIntosh and put Baker back to the forward line because he looks a lot more comfortable there.
Yeah, definitely. I mean...
Or Stack. That's the other one. If he's right to go, then, that creates another headache.
Yeah, totally. I mean, if Stack's fit, he'll get straight in. But I wouldn't mind seeing McIntosh come in. I actually am a fan of Macca.
So am I. I reckon he's in our best 22 for sure.
Yeah, and I mean, it's probably just on effort. It's a little bit of the Stephen Morris thing as far as just trying your all, but he's got a few more tricks in the bag. So it'd be great to see Camden come in. And maybe just give Stack another week. I mean, I don't want to sort of put too much shit out there, but it's only Carlton.
And what about the $1 million question? Do we roll the dice on Pickett? He's played one game in the VFL, 20 disposals and a goal, and our VFL effort had the most views and comments I've seen in years because of him playing. He looked good, I'll give him that. And the mid-season draft, it's like, did we bring him in specifically to try and target this back end of the season and maybe do a bit of a Jack Graham or a Jacob Townsend and have an impact and fun? I'm not too sure what their mindset was, but do you roll the dice at some point with him and see what he's got?
I guess I'll put this in two ways. Before I watched the highlights video, I would have said no, absolutely not. So that's probably speaking from logic and sense. Yep. After I watched the video, 100% bring him in. He looks... he's got, I guess, just that confidence with ball in hand that he's not sort of, the rabbit in headlights kind of thing. So, I don't know. I wouldn't bemoan the club if they did bring him in this week. And it's probably, what sort of games have we got left, actually, really...
Yeah, well, it's got Carlton, West Coast and Brisbane.
Yeah, so, I mean, if you were going to do the experiment, this is the week that you probably give it a shot.
I think so too, but yeah, it'd be a ballsy call, but I wouldn't be against it given what I saw as well. But I know a few people have thrown up the possibility, like, is it a slap in the face to other guys who have, done the hard yards in the VFL? But at the end of the day, the guy's got talent. He's a mature player. It's not like he's a young kid coming through.
Yeah, totally. And I mean, unfortunately, there are just some qualities in footballers that can't be taught or can't be maintained through form through the VFL. It's just, he's got it, I suppose. Yeah.
We'll take a look at some key matchups. David Asprey versus Harry McKay. Big Harry was good last week. He's starting to clunk a few grabs. And I think Asprey will be the man who'll go to him when he's playing deep in the forward line. But if Harry gets on his bike up the ground, I'm not too fussed if he marks it up or on the wing. I don't think as a team we are either, to be honest. But I think he's going to be an important one to stop to make sure they don't kick a big score. Yeah,
and I think the Richmond defenders will be mindful of the fact, I think he's top 5 in contested marks in the league at the moment, which certainly surprised me when I saw it. So, yeah, hopefully, I guess he does get a little bit of attention. But, as you say, if he's sort of drifting up the ground a bit more, then it's probably not as dangerous as the Aaron Norton nightmare that we lived through.
I can't remember I posted it, but he shapeshifted into Wayne Carey that night, and I don't want to see it happen again. That was crazy.
I was at that game, and I think I was probably 3 rows from the ground, from the fence, and my God, just the space that opened before him.
It was,
insane. Yeah.
It was Mason Cox prelim final all over again.
I know. I mean, I'm not so dirty about this because, that wasn't Aaron Norton's first game of AFL as shown by Mason Cox.
Yeah.
I think, we definitely need to probably keep an eye on McKay. And I think Asprey is probably in good, red hot form. So he'll be able to sort of do the job for sure.
Yeah, but like always, as we all know, it's going to be a team defensive unit effort. But, someone's got to obviously mark him, and I think Asprey will be the man. This next one might seem a little bit odd on the surface, but Dustin Martin versus Jack Silvani. Now, I'm not Silvani's biggest fan by any stretch. I'm shocked he still gets a game, to be honest. But his new role of tagging, he's actually been okay at, to be fair. He had no idea he was a backman or a forward. But as a shutdown player, I think he does an okay job, and I reckon they might send him to Dusty.
Yeah, and I think we've probably seen that Dusty struggles with that a bit. So that is probably going to be a little bit of a concern. I guess the flip side to that is we don't need Dusty to play well to win a game.
That's true, yeah.
I mean, it definitely helps, but yeah, who knows? I mean, it's a little bit of sort of rating Jack Silvani on what we've seen in the past when he's tried to fit in a forward and defensive structure. So you kind of really don't rate him as a footballer. But yeah, you're right. He did the job on Fife. He has actually impressed doing that. He's got a good tank, and I think he's better at that role because the good plays are actually leading him to the ball, so he doesn't have to worry about trying to find it himself. So I think he will get stuck into Dusty, and hopefully we can sort of fly the flag and try and break that tag up a little bit.
From
Are
the
you
other...
saying that we should go out and smash them?
No, the player that come to mind, actually, Caddy's the kind of bloke, I reckon, that can really interrupt the tag just by niggling, shoving, just getting his body in the way, and I think he's a bit of the enforcer type.
He's definitely got the campaigner streak through him.
Oh, the arrogance is high. I love it.
Yeah. I'm actually surprised to see that Lynch plays with such aggression.
Yeah.
Watching him off the ball at the ground, he is constantly getting thrown around by the defender, throwing his direct opponent around, or sort of having words. It's really
good. It's a nice change.
It is, and I mean, but it's just probably disarming as far as you've got this 6'5", 6'6" baby face forward who is absolutely just a prick, and it's great.
And the person who'd be standing there pissing himself laughing the most would be Jack Rewell. He's like, I don't have to do anything. He can just ragdoll everyone. I'll just hang out the back here and get a sneaky mark.
Yeah, God, it's crazy. Like, before Jack came in, I think I was sort of prepping myself for, Jack's going to really explode here. But Tom Lynch has just gotten so much better.
Yeah, it's crazy how good he's getting, and I think he's going to step up in September. He just seems like that kind of guy who wants that moment.
Yeah, big time. And I mean, it's he's sort of had to wait a long time as far as really struggling out of bloody portables in Queensland.
Yeah.
To here, I mean, he's going to get to experience a fair few sort of people watching him play live, especially in the next coming weeks.
Absolutely, I think he's made for it. He'll be fine.
Yeah.
And the last matchup, obviously Patrick Cripps is a gun footballer. Unfortunately, stuck at a shit club. We'll have him anytime he wants to come across. I think Jack Graham's done a super job the last few weeks, not necessarily as a shutdown tagger, but more of a minder, I suppose, of the opposition best player around stoppages. Just the ability to make sure they don't get clean ball. His tackle numbers are way up. His pressure rating's way up. And I think he's just going to have to keep a really close eye on Cripps at a stoppage.
Yeah, I think last 2 or 3 weeks he's been just sort of smashing it in terms of the tackle numbers.
Yeah, I think he's third in the comp. I think he's doing really well in that area.
I think that's a pretty good sort of description of the role he plays, as far as he is a little bit of just a minder, as far as just looking for the spot fire to go over and just like, all right, everything's all right. Yeah. So I mean, that's probably the logical role for him. I don't know whether it's going to be like a strict sort of tag. Yeah, I mean, that makes sense to me.
Hopefully he does a good job, because you don't want Cripps to get off the chain, but it's going to be an interesting game. I think Carlton might have a few more ins coming back as well. I think Daisy Thomas might be coming back. I personally don't think that helps them at all because of his lack of pace now. He's a bit older. I think our small forwards will run rings around him, so I'm all for Daisy coming back in.
Yeah, definitely. I guess you can never discount footy now, though, as far as like an older player. I mean, Jordan Lewis showed us as much. So I guess it's probably something to be wary of, but I don't know. There's a bit of the Richmond in me that's just like, it's only Daisy Thomas.
I'm just sitting here thinking this episode could really bite us in the ass next week if this goes pear-shaped. Oh, dear.
3 votes.
Yeah. Well, it's all a bit of fun.
Yeah.
All right, before we let you go, we'll get a final tip, including margin for this one. Who are you going with?
Tigers.
And what kind of margin are you looking at?
Oh, God. Geez, I really want to put it up there, but I'm just going to be a bit logical and say maybe 21 points.
Yeah, that's fair enough. We've done really well at hitting like that high 20 to 30 point mark, so I'll say about 31 points. I think you nailed it earlier that it's going to be close early on, but just with our grinding mentality, I think we might pull away later in the game. So, But like we've said the last few weeks, we just need the 4 points to keep onto that 4th spot, and that'll do us.
Yeah, that's it. Yep, I'm happy with that. I don't know. Are we really going to be doing the strategic placement thing from here on out? Like, what did you think of that whole thing as far as, like, we play Brisbane, and it's sort of a decision as far as where we want to play away first week of finals?
I think we're at the stage now where you just keep winning. Winning form's good form, and I think as a club we back ourselves to beat anyone anywhere. We're not like the mob down at Geelong who only back themselves to win at their own ground. I mean, personally, we would rather play Geelong at the G naturally, and if I had to pick who I'd rather play out of Brisbane and West Coast, I'd rather play Brisbane and Brisbane, to be honest. But
if
it worked out we had to play West Coast first week, then so be it. But I don't think we should flirt with form for the sake of that. I think we should just believe that we're good enough to win against anyone, anywhere, and because you have to beat teams all over the place to win the big prize at the end of the day, and it would just make it so much sweeter, wouldn't it?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, inspirational.
Who would you rather?
That was nice. Yeah, I'd definitely take Brisbane out of those three in terms of Geelong and West Coast. But I mean, just for the banter alone, it'd be great to play against Geelong at the G again.
My God.
That is still the best game of football I've ever seen, the qualifying final. Unreal.
Yeah. It'd be nice when a prelim, though, I think.
Oh, totally. Yeah, I mean, whatever, man. I just want to relive that moment of Dusty putting the don't argue on Tom Stewart and bang. Like, the game was done by then, as soon as that happened.
Yeah, that was shot. No, it was a good game, and hopefully we can get back to that kind of level in the finals. And I'm looking forward to another final series. I think, everyone wrote us off early on before the bye, especially without Rance and all the injuries we had. But I think internally, and there was still a small part of the supporter base that always thought that, we were still a chance to make the 8. But to be potentially in the 4 is an extreme effort. And there'll be teams looking over their shoulders, no doubt about it.
Yeah, for sure. And I think it's a credit to any Richmond supporter who probably kept the faith, because I know I wavered a couple of times in the middle of the season there when the Giants and Collingwood and Geelong were putting some really big numbers on us as far as margins. But yeah, dare I say it, I'm probably a little bit more confident than I was last year, which is odd.
Well, it's not. I don't think it's odd at all, because if you look at last year, at this time last year, we were playing really shit football, but managing to scrape wins together because of who we were playing. Whereas this year, we're actually playing good football and coming into form, as opposed to the opposite. So, I get where you're coming from. It's a much better position to be in this time than last year.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I'm in. I'm in, man. 100%.
All in. Absolutely.
Yeah. Flag or bust.
All right, Brahj. Well, thank you so much for coming on tonight, mate. Really appreciate your time, and hopefully the Tigers get up this weekend and we don't look like dickheads next week.
Yeah, well, I mean, there's always that fear, isn't there? No, thanks, man. Thanks for having me. It's been
no worries at all.
Nice.
Until next time, go Tigers.
Yeah, go Tigers.
Thank you for listening to another episode of the Richmond BigFooty Tigercast. Be sure to subscribe to the podcast on iTunes and YouTube so you can follow all the roast and toast, the reviews and previews, and all topics Richmond. Also keep an ear out for our special episodes of interviews with past players. Go Tigers.